Hello all, Matt Ross from Simple Strength Training here again. How are you all going? As promised, this is a video about my 4 secrets to a successful, healthy lifestyle change. But before we get into that, if you like what you hear here today, please subscribe and like down the bottom there. Also share with your friends. Tell them about me. I'm also a coach, and I'm also always happy to give some advice where I can. You can contact me on any of my socials. I'll put them down below in comment notes. On the notes, just click on them and they'll take you to my web page, Insta or Facebook, and you can send me a message from there. Alrighty, so I haven't been a coach for very long professionally. Like I said in other podcasts or YouTube videos, I've helped out friends in that in a non-professional sense and all that sort of stuff. But in what I'm going to talk about today, I have a lot of what would you say, purchase or buy-in. And just a fair warning for you, as I'm talking about this, I'm going to probably show up a couple of pictures of my before and afters and that. They're not the most flattering pictures in any way, shape or form, but just giving you a fair warning that you might have some sore eyes or a little bit of bleeding after you look at them. Only joking. But yeah, so for me, as I've said before, my journey started a bit over 10 years ago, with weighing in at about 211 kilograms, and decided to make that healthy change for myself. And over a period of the last 12 to 11 years, I've gotten to where I am today. And what I'm going to talk about is things that some of which I knew before I started, some of which I didn't, and other things that I've learned along the way that would have helped me out a lot more knowing them before I started. And I'm just sharing them with you today to hopefully help someone else out, because I know how much of a change it made in my life, and if it can help someone make a change in theirs, or if I can help you make a change in yours, even if you don't ever contact me, if this video helps you make a change in your life and gets you on the right path, then fantastic. It'll be worthwhile. Alrighty. Okay, the 4 secrets that I've found that help me out the most. The first one covers a lot of ground, and the last 3 all work in with themselves and with the first one. All right, rule number 1 is honesty. And that's honesty with yourself. The most important thing that I can say is you have to be honest with yourself. And when I say honest with yourself, I mean honest with yourself when it comes to the decisions you're going to make in regards to your diet, your time schedule, what time you have available in that schedule, and sacrifices you're willing to make. They're all going to play a really big part in you being successful and you being honest with yourself about them in order to reach your goals that you set for yourself. We'll start off by saying a bit about your goals. Be honest about your goals. And when I say that, I mean, can they be a lofty goal? Can they be like something that someone will say, oh mate, you've got no chance of reaching that? Yes, they can be that. And I'll say in most cases, as long as it's a realistic goal, then yes. And what do I mean by that? Do I mean if you weigh 170 kilos now and in 6 months you want to be a 90 kilogram ball of muscle? I'm going to say, unfortunately, that's not a realistic goal. That's a bit ludicrous. Or if you turn around to me and you say, I've never run a day in my life, but in 3 months' time I want to run a half marathon. Once again, completely ludicrous goal for the time frame. Not a goal that you couldn't reach. And neither of them are goals that you couldn't reach, but your time frame has to be more realistic with those things. And that's all that I mean by that. I don't mean don't reach for the stars, because to be honest with you, if you reach for the stars and you fall 10 feet short, you're in a much better place than where you started by far. Even if you only got halfway up there, you're still in a much better place than where you started. So don't let anyone tell you your goals are unrealistic or silly or there's no way you're going to get them. Just be more realistic about the time frame you have to get them. If your goal is to become the first man on Mars, I'm going to say, well, unless you've know some people or have a lot of buy-in into those areas now, and if you're of a reasonable age, like getting older in life, I'd say your chances are pretty slim in reaching them ones. But health goals and physical goals, any of them sort of things can be reached if you just look at them realistically and plan out your time frame to reach them. And that's what I mean by realistic. don't think you're going to achieve everything in the first 12 months from starting. So plan your goals, plan them in a realistic time frame, and don't be afraid to reach for whatever you want to reach for as far as they go. If you want to become a bodybuilder and stand on a bodybuilding stage and compete in a physique competition, absolutely go for it. Give it a whirl. But be realistic about how long it's going to take you to get there and what you have to do to get there. Alrighty, from that we probably have to talk a little bit about your diet if you're going to make a change for a healthier lifestyle, if your diet needs a bit of a hand. Unfortunately, I'm going to be upfront and honest about this. You are going to need to make some changes to reach some of the goals if you're living a relatively unhealthy lifestyle now. Yes, you're going to have to plan out what you're going to eat. You're going to have to count your calories. You're going to have to decide what you're willing to give up, and you're going to have to be honest about it and what you're not willing to give up. So if you are willing to give up chocolate for a period of time, give up chocolate for a period of time, but don't lie to yourself about it and try and sneak bits and pieces in here and there, them sort of things. Work out what you want to give up, what you don't want to give up. When you are running through your diet and working out what you want, you are going to need to record it, and you are going to need to find a way to do that. And when you do record your diet and what you eat and all that sort of stuff as you go, you will have to be honest with yourself. If you do break and you do have that bit of chocolate that you weren't supposed to be having, or you decided that you weren't going to have, you're going to have to write that in there and take that into consideration. I'm going to tell you now, you will have to count your calories. You will have to monitor how much food you're eating. When I first started, I will be honest, I didn't count my calories, but I was really overweight, and I just basically stopped eating pizza and all the other crap that goes along with that, KFC and all that sort of stuff, and just ate healthy, which saw a marked decrease in my calorie intake. Where I was honest with myself in that, I went no more junk food. And when I say I went strict, I went to the other end of the scale, where I went no junk food, no sugar, no refined food whatsoever, no chips, no chocolate, no lollies, no nothing. I just went right to that end of the scale. That's what I did, and that was for other reasons, because part of my journey was I had type 2 diabetes, and I needed to get that under control, because to be quite frankly, I was scared of dying, and I was scared of going blind, and I was scared of things like my toes falling off. I'd seen what diabetes can do to people, and I didn't want any part of it, to be honest. So I was honest with myself in what I had to do, and that's where I started from. The next bit comes into, if you are going to plan that you want to become a lot more active, you need to be honest with yourself about how you're going about doing that. And when I say that, I mean honest with how much time you have available to yourself to do that in and do that with, and when you're planning your weeks out. What do I mean by that? I mean, not what you'd like to do, not what you think you could do, and not what you maybe will do. What you can actually fit in. If you can only fit in 2 30-minute exercise sessions a week, and they're 2 30-minute exercise sessions that you can guarantee you can fit in, put them in your plan that you're going to have. If you do more than that, that's great, and you can fit a bit more in, that's fine. But commit to yourself to do those 2 30-minute things each week. And that's where that honesty comes in. If you can fit in more, fit in more. If you want to, as an example, add a lot more muscle to your mass, you're going to have to learn to lift weights. Do you have to start off by training 6 days a week? Absolutely not. Myself, I started by doing 3 days a week, just a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday before work for about an hour and a half. I spent about 35 minutes, 40 minutes doing cardio work, and about 35 minutes doing weights. And I did that 3 days a week, and I committed to doing that 3 days a week. I also played a lot of golf. So a lot of outside exercise that I got was just coincidental, because I played a lot of golf and I walked a lot of golf. So I had a lot of walking worked in with mine. So extra exercise was easy for me to find, but actually going to the gym was hard. And just on a side note, that walking into the gym for the first time weighing at 200 plus kilos is a scary thing for anyone to do. Don't be afraid to do it if that's what you're going to do. It's the gym environment that you think is out there is not what's out there. Everyone that's there is there for the same reason you are, and that is to make a change for the better in their lives. For whatever reason it is, they're there for the same reason you are, and 99% of them will support you, and the ones that don't are considered to be pricks by the general gym community and aren't welcome anyway. All right, enough of that bit. Back onto the honesty bit. All right. So yes, be honest with yourself. If you're just planning on wanting to be a bit healthier, maybe just joining a club and playing some sport. But be honest about your commitment to it. Be honest with yourself. Are you going to have the time to do that? You have families. People have families. People have other commitments in their lives that they need to stick to, work commitments. So sit down with yourself, really look at your schedule and work out the things that you can absolutely commit to doing and commit to those things. And if that is only once a week and you will work in other things as you can through the week, that's fine. But commit to your once a week. So when you do that once a week, you know that you've committed to it and you've been successful at it. And that's a positive feedback for you. And that'll help make you stronger and more committed in moving forward. The next one is a big hard one to do. It's one that I found a little bit harder to do because I went to the other end of the scale with, like I said, no refined stuff, and that meant no alcohol either for me. I had to make a lot of sacrifices in my social life, and I had to be honest with myself that I was going to do that. I was a bit lucky. I had golf because I was playing a lot of golf, so I had that social aspect part of my life to fall back on, where I got to spend time with friends and people that I knew and stuff. But I had to you have to make sacrifices, and you have to be honest with yourself about those sacrifices. And if that is giving up drinking or giving up something altogether, that's fine. Do it if you can, but be honest with yourself about whether you can or you want to do it. If you're someone that eats out regularly 3 or 4 nights a week, unfortunately, that's probably not going to be able to work in if you want to change your diet and things like that. Because honestly, it's really hard to track those foods when you go out to start with, because you have no understanding of what's going on. And that's the honest truth. You have no understanding of what goes into making, people are putting in those foods that they're making for you. You have no clue. So you might have to sacrifice 3 nights of your week going out and eating and only eat out 1 night a week. But be honest with yourself about what you're willing to sacrifice. Going out on the weekends, going out and drinking 2 or 3 nights a week is not conducive to a healthier lifestyle, trust me. I've been there, done that, and it does not help. And it makes a bit of a fool of you too. Yes, I become quite the arsehole in the end. I used to be a happy drunk to start with, but as I got older, I become a bit of one of those blokes that when I'd wake up in this morning, I hate myself a little bit. There's a bit of honesty for you. So I stopped drinking. But if drinking leads into a lot of other things, it can lead into excessive eating and stuff and all that sort of follow-on stuff when you're out and about and drinking and you're having a bit of fun and not really worrying about life and everything else that's going on. But that's a sacrifice you may have to make. You may still want to go out 1 night a week with your mates. That's great. Work that into your plan, but know it's going to be there. So when you start, it's there. But commit to only doing that. So when you make that plan to move through it and you go, well, I'm going to go out once a week still, only go out the once a week. If you want it to be one particular night, that's fine. But you can be flexible. If you're going, well, my friends are going out Saturday night this week, we got plans, make it your Saturday night you're going out. If you're going out that Friday, in 2 weeks' time on a Friday night because they've got a big barbecue or something on, make your night out that Friday night. But be honest with yourself about it. Don't go, I'll go out the Friday night, then when your mates come around and go, yeah, we're going down the footy to watch the footy this afternoon. Come on, come with us and we'll have a few drinks. You've got to be willing to say no. And that's where you have to be honest with yourself. And that's where you have to be honest with your friends. And that's where this leads into the next part of the honesty side of things. You need to talk to your friends. You need to explain to them what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it. when you decide to make a change in your life like this, and honestly, it's a hard thing to do, but one of the hard things to do is you may have to give up some of your social aspect of your life. Your friends will miss you, and they will want you to be with them. And so I would sit down, and this is probably one of the things that I learned as I was going. While I was doing this, I was taking meals to my friend's place when I went round there and not eating the food that they supplied. You can do that, but you have to be honest with yourself and make yourself do that. So I'd go to my friend's place every Friday night, and we'd have a games night, spend time with their families and their whole like extended family and other friends and stuff like that. We'd play cards. They'd drink, they'd eat pizza, they'd eat KFC, but I'd take my own food and I wouldn't eat what they were having. I'd eat what I'd taken. That was where I had one of my little treats. Once I got a bit further along in my plan and I understood how things worked a bit better, I started introducing some chocolate. So when I went to their place, I'd have 3 pieces of chocolate. When I say 3 pieces of chocolate, I meant 3 little squares. And that would be my treat for the week. So that's how anal I was about it and how bad I was, I would say, or whatever you want to say, extreme or committed, whichever way you look at that. But that's what I did. And I spoke to my friends about it and I explained to them and I asked them, would you mind if I did that? And they said, no, that was fine. That's how you can tell who true friends are. They will not press you to go out when you say no. Say, no, I can't do that because I'm trying to do this. Real friends, if you ask them to stop pressuring you to do it, will stop pressuring you to do it. They'll ask you if you want to go. You'll say no, and they'll say, no worries, mate. Hopefully it works in for you to come out next time. And real friends who want to see you succeed will be willing to do that for you. In saying that, as you move along, you will probably find stages throughout this whole process that you're going to fall down and things are going to go to shit. And you're going to go, oh, that's it. I've completely screwed the pooch here. I'm giving it up. I'm going to stop it. Don't do that. This is where you need to sit back and you need to look at why this has happened. And this is another point of being honest with yourself. You need to be honest about why it happened. Was it because falling down of your willpower wall? That's fine. Everyone does that. Everyone's human. It happened to me. It happens. There was a stage in the middle of my process where I stopped and changed things around and started put on 20 kilos and set myself back 20 kilos, well, 17 kilos to be precise, because I made a change. But I realized that the change that I made wasn't good. So I sat down and said, what was working and what wasn't working. So I went back to what was working and went back to that and stuck to it again. And that got me back on the right path. You do need to do the same thing. You just look at why this happened. Was it just a one-off thing? If it was just a one-off thing that was unexpected that happened, that's fine. Don't let one-off things become 2-off things and 3-off things and 4-off things. Realize what that was and move on. But if it's something that starts happening regularly, you need to look at why it's happening regularly and do you need to make a change to that. And that's where you need to be honest about what the reason is that your little break in willpower is happening, or this regular break in willpower is happening, or this regular break in routine is happening. You need to be honest with yourself about it. And that's what it all comes back down to, is being honest. You need to be honest with yourself, and honest with your friends, and honest with the changes you need to make in your life, because being honest with yourself is where it all starts. And my dad said to my mum before he passed away, and this is in the later stages of his life, as he was getting ready to pass away, he said to my mum, plan to start as you plan to continue. And that's the best advice. So when you start this journey and you want to be honest, plan to be honest with yourself and plan to continue to be honest with yourself. It's great advice. It's advice that I've taken on, and it's advice I listen to in my head every day when I need it. All right, now we've covered the first rule pretty in-depthly and for a fair while. Let's get on to 2, 3, and 4. These 3 rules, they work in with each other. And once I tell them to you, you've probably heard them all before. You may never have heard them before. But what I will say is these rules are simply the way it is. There's no getting around it. The first one is pretty simple, and they all follow the same sort of tact. Rule 2 is if you want to add weight or tissue to your body, you need to consume more calories than you burn, and that means you're in an energy surplus. Rule 3 is to maintain your weight, and tissue on your body, you need to consume the same amount of calories that you burn, and this is called an energy balance. And rule 4 is to lose weight or tissue from your body, you need to consume less calories than you burn, and this is called an energy deficit. Now, before we get going, you say, I know this bloke that lost an absolute crap load of weight and put on a whole heap of muscle and all that sort of stuff, or I know this lady that did this or this person that did that. I will say that yes, there are outliers to everything. People who are already overweight can add muscle to their body and lose weight at the same time, 100%. That's because their body's already in an energy surplus. They've got heaps of extra energy there to burn. There's also other ways around it. The people that take, let's say, the not so over-the-counter stimulant supplements that help their body out through these processes. Yes, if you want to take them, they will probably help you achieve your goals. If you're willing to put your health at risk, go for it. I'm not saying it seems counterintuitive to choosing a healthier lifestyle, but go for it. If that's what your goals are, have at it. Not that I agree with it. I agree with, say, hormone replacement therapy for men and women, but vast amounts of exogenous hormones being injected into your body or taken actually, and all different chemicals to help other processes work or not work, then I don't agree with that. And then there's the genetically gifted. These people are the people that seem to just do whatever the hell they like as far as eating and exercising, all that sort of stuff goes, and they just get the results without a lot of effort. The genetically gifted people who put in the effort are the people you see that become very successful. They're the people on the bodybuilding stages, winning Mr. Olympia and all them sort of things. And I would say, and I'm going to be honest with you here, this is part of the honesty thing, it's more likely than not that you are not one of the genetically gifted people before you start thinking that you are. A story that I once heard, I can't remember where I heard it. It might have been on a Renaissance periodization podcast or a guest speaker on one of a different podcasts. I can't remember what it was, but it was a story about Jay Cutler. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Whether it's just anecdotal, just to make a point, I don't know either. But the story goes that after his first week in the gym, he's walked out of the gym and a bloke's walked up to him and said, "Mate, you look amazing. How did you get to look like that?" And he said, "Mate, I've got no advice for you other than I've just been this is my first week in the gym." He was a genetically gifted person, as physical specimens go, and went on to become one of the best bodybuilders in the world. So that's what I mean when I talk about genetically gifted. He looked like he'd been lifting for years before he even started. And if you don't believe me, look around and tell me how many of your friends look like Arnold Schwarzenegger or have won an Olympic gold medal or are world champions at the sport or the pursuit that they follow. And if you do have some friends that are those people, that's great, and that's really good. But they've worked hard to get there, and they've more than likely had a helping hand from their DNA. So just do that. Just look around and tell me how many of your friends are one of those people that are at an elite level of a sport. I don't mean the best players at your local footy comp. I mean play AFL, have won a Mr. Olympia, go to the Olympics, compete at the Olympics, have won an Olympic gold medal, are world champions, them sort of things. There's a lot less of them than you think. So if you are one of them, more power to you. I'm extremely happy for you. Put in the effort to become one of those elite people. But my point here is, if you aren't one of those elite people, you need to pay closer attention to these rules. You need to be more honest with yourself, because you don't have that DNA advantage. You haven't got that helping hand to get you going. All right. So enough about that, enough about me ranting at you about that bit. I'll get onto a bit more of an explanation of what makes up the 3 rules before we start diving into them. The first one is how much energy you use to exist throughout the day. Doing whatever you're doing from day to day, breathing, walking, going to work, running around, doing whatever, that is your total daily energy expenditure. And you might have heard that term before, or might have seen it written down somewhere as TDEE, but it's just basically how many calories you burn in a single day. Whereas a calorie is just what they use to measure an amount of energy in your food and for you to burn. So that's what we are starting with, an energy balance. That is what TDE is. It's just a measure of how many calories you burn in a day. And your calorie is a unit measurement of energy. In order to know how much energy we use during the day, we need to track it. And this is where the honesty starts to tie in as well. You need to pay attention to what you're eating. You need to record it. You need to know how much energy you are taking into your body every day. There's lots of different ways to do this, but for me, the easiest way to do this is by using MyFitnessPal, is what I use to record all my food and that I eat during the day, so that way I know how much energy I'm taking in. How do we track how that energy is being used? Well, there's a few different ways. The 2 simplest ways for you to do it at home is to use measurements and to weigh yourself. We'll start with the weighing yourself. To weigh yourself, I would suggest that you weigh yourself approximately 5 to 7 days a week, every morning, at the same time every day. Whatever time you choose that to be and whenever that is, that's completely up to you. If you want it to be just before you hop into bed each time, do it each time you hop into bed, just before you hop into bed. If you want to do it in the morning, just after you get up and you've been to the toilet, taking your first whiz for the morning and a dump, and then hop on the scales, do it then. Do it then, but do it at the same time every morning. And we do that, we record the weight, and then we take an average of it for the week. The reason we like to work on an average is because weight fluctuates day to day and depending on how much water you drink, all that sort of stuff. And when you get your diet into some form of regularity and your exercise regime into some form of regularity, you will see regular fluctuations in that, and your weight go up and down from day to day and day to day. So the best way to track it is as an average over a weekly period, or every 5 days or every 6 days, whatever works best for you. But whatever you plan on doing, once again, be honest with yourself, do it the same way, stick to it, and do it all the time. If you want to do the average over every 5 days, do it every 5 days. And that you'll see that your weight will either go up and down. And we look at that for a couple of weeks or 2 or 3 weeks, just eating what you're eating now, and you'll see where your weight is. All right. You can measure, and measuring, you can do a couple of different ways. You can either use a tape measure and measure your waist and your chest and all that sort of stuff. But I'd only do that probably once a week or once a month. What I find the easiest way to measure is, for most people, is how your clothes fit. If you start losing weight, they'll start feeling like they're fitting a bit better. If you start adding weight, they'll start feeling a bit tighter. You'll have to go out notches on your belt. You'll have to come in notches on your belt. These are all very obvious, and that's a simple way to measure your waist, is how much your belt moves, how tight your skirt feels around your waist, how tight your jeans are, whether that bra is getting looser and you have to adjust the straps at the back, the top's starting to hang off your shoulders a little bit more, things like that. That's a great way to measure. That is a way of measuring it. How you look in the mirror can also be a way of measuring it. I find that how clothes fit and tracking your weight is the best way to measure that. Is the best way to track those things. Rightio. The next part of working with an energy balance and knowing what the energy balance is what the food's made up of. And everyone has their own ways of doing this and their own plans of doing this. I have the way that I prefer to do it. So in general, just for most people, what you're going to need to know is what carbs, carbohydrates are, what fat is, and what protein is, and how much of these things you're eating. First of all, I'll just give you a really simple explanation of each one. Carbohydrate provides short-term energy to the body. Fat provides long-term energy to the body, in the form of storing it as the fat stored on your body. And protein is basically the food that the muscle uses to grow. That's a very simple explanation of each of those. There's obviously a lot more that goes into it, but for the sake of this video, that's as simple as it needs to be, and that's pretty much covers the general basis of what they are. Now, for me, in saying that, I have my preferred method, and I like to ensure people meet a minimum protein requirement. There are minimum protein recommended daily amounts, and that's 0.8 grams per kilogram, basically. And to be honest with you, that's for someone who sits around all day and stares at a TV and does nothing and basically just breathes to exist. So what I recommend is around about going no lower than 1.7 to 1.8 grams of protein per kilogram, up to as high as 2.2 grams of protein for every kilogram you eat. Every kilogram of your body weight. That's what I recommend. And the other things take care of themselves. As long as you're getting a reasonable balance of them, and the other things tend to take care of themselves. As long as you're getting a good balance of fats and carbohydrates into your body, you will have a pretty reasonable diet. In saying that, I would suggest you stay away from more refined foods or non-whole foods. So once again, all those meats and vegetables and all those sort of things, whole grain breads and all that sort of stuff are all great sources. Most people generally know what's healthy food and what's not. If you think KFC is a healthy form of getting your chicken in, then I have some bad news for you. That's not the case. If you think Hungry Jack's gives you a nice healthy burger, then I'm afraid that's not the case. If you think Mickey D's is a great place to go and eat, they might have some really nice salads, but a cheeseburger or a bacon and egg patty, but a bacon and egg McMuffin is not always the healthiest choice. It's more so because, once again, you're not making it. You don't know what goes into it. But hey, if you can work that into your plan, work it into your plan. Who am I to say you can't? But remember, you have to be honest with yourself. So I'm just going to have a bit of a sip of my coffee. Coffee is one of the things I never gave up. Love coffee. I'm a coffee whore. Sorry, I love it. So in saying that, there's lots of places online where you can find out a lot more information than what I'm giving you here in regards to it. I'll put some links down below in the notes for you, but some of those places have good explanations on diet and all that sort of stuff, how to plan your diets out and what to do. And that is one's Renaissance Periodization, Muscle for Life Fitness podcast, which is also Legion Athletics, Mike Matthews. They offer some good information. Stronger by Science has some good information on there. All those them sort of places, they all offer some good things. Kyle Hunt Fitness, he has some good information on running a diet, but they're the things that you pretty much have to know. If you can get that amount of protein in, 1.8 grams to 2.2 grams of protein for every kilogram of body weight, keep your carbs and fats sources as healthy foods, then everything else will work out for itself once we get into the next 3 rules, and you'll see what I mean by that. So to get into that, we'll start getting into the 3 rules themselves. And the first one is to start keeping things in balance. That's your weight and energy. And depending on your goals and what you're aiming to do, if your goals are to stay the same weight, then pretty much you need to find out how many calories maintain that weight for you with what you're doing. And that's what I mentioned before. You weigh yourself as you've planned, or measure yourself as you've planned, and you monitor that over 2 or 3 week period, and you get an average. And you start off with your TDE, and there's plenty of calculators out there. Like I said, those places have that I've put up there tell you have some good ways of measuring it, and there's plenty of online tools to help you find out a starting point for your total daily energy expenditure. Just a quick side note on that, what I will say is that it is just a starting point. It is not a set in stone amount. Every single person has a different total daily energy expenditure. Just remember that it's just a starting point. Everyone's a little bit different. It's just to give you the best educated guess that they can for you to start somewhere. And as you go through it, if your goal is to stay the same weight, you might start at, say, 2,500 calories, just as an example, for no particular reason. And you might find eating around about that 2,500 calories over a 2 or 3 week period, you started losing a little bit of weight. So if you wanted to stay the same weight, you'd have to increase your calories a little bit to bring that up so your weight stayed the same. And the opposite applies going in the other direction. If you found that eating that 2,500 calories, you were actually putting on a little bit of weight, in order for your weight to stay the same or around about where you want it, you need to take some of those calories out. Now, that's exactly how it works for that. For if you're just eating food and your weight was fluctuating. The other way you have to look at energy balances is if you want to stay the same weight, but for some reason you change a job or you take up running and just to get a bit fitter and improve your cardiovascular. And what you might find is that increased amount of energy that you're putting out starts meaning that you start losing weight. So once again, like I said before, more energy going out, your weight starts to drop off, you need to increase your calories a bit more. And you just keep an eye on it as you go. So that's basically maintaining your energy. Now, what I would suggest to do is, so the next one we'll look at is the losing weight, because that's what everyone generally is thinking about doing in, for most cases, when they start thinking about a healthy lifestyle change. And that's losing weight or being in an energy deficit or losing tissue from your body. So there's no way around it at all. You just have to consume less calories than you burn in order for tissue or weight to be removed from your body. What do we have to do to do that? So first of all, we have to work out a healthy calorie deficit for your body. So once again, we'll just use 2,500 because it's an easy number to start with. In most cases, they recommend to drop your calorie intake by about 15 to 20%. That gives you a little bit of wiggle room to make some mistakes. In case you accidentally eat something that you weren't expecting to eat, or you have a bit of one day out of 14, you have eat a bit more than you should have. It allows you a bit of wiggle room. So that 15 to 20% area is pretty good. The reason I say that is because as you get into it, you'll soon learn, if you are tracking your calories, which I really suggest you do, that 2 slices of bread equals pretty close to 180 to 200 calories. And once you chuck a bit of cheese or some peanut butter or some jam on that, it becomes very easy to eat an extra 200, 250 calories in a day. The other way to do it is, if you don't want to change how much food you're eating to lose weight and keep your calories the same, you just need to increase your energy output. So if you want to lose weight but not change how you're eating, just do more, basically. If you use a step counter and you go, well, I'm only walking 5,000 steps a day on average, eat the same amount of food and start walking 10,000 steps a day on average. That increases your energy output, which basically means your body will need more calories to meet that energy requirement, thereby meaning you're in an energy deficit. So in the third one is do both. And you get the best of both worlds there. A healthier body through diet and exercise. So there's basically 2 ways to go about losing the weight. You can do a long and slow weight loss, or you can do a fast and furious one. Both of them have their place depending on where you're at in your journey or what your plan is or what you're aiming to do. If you've got a lot of weight to lose or you're extremely overweight in an unhealthy way, I would suggest you use a long and slow process. That way you'll learn, it's the best chance for you to learn exactly what are good foods to eat, how to plan out your time, how to plan out your meals, all that sort of stuff, and you'll get used to doing it and learn a lot about food and everything along the way. If you already have a good handle on that and you need to drop some weight quickly, a fast and furious approach is good too. I don't mean an extreme fast and furious approach. I just mean a fast and furious approach in the sense of a 6-week weight loss. Either way through that, you can have diet breaks and stuff in there. The long and slow one, I would suggest to try and avoid having them too regularly. But every 10 to 12 weeks, have a diet break for 2 weeks and then get back into it, I would suggest. But for the people who are extremely overweight, I would suggest that for at least 3 to 6 months, you try and stick to your plan that you have in place without giving yourself too much of a break, just to get yourself into all the good habits of doing it. So when it comes time to have a diet break and you give yourself a little bit of an ease off on what you've been doing, it's much easier for you to get back onto the horse and keep riding. That's my suggestion in that. What a lot of anecdotal experience has shown from people that I've been listening to on podcasts that run apps that track weight and all that sort of stuff and track people on diets and all that sort of thing, they generally find that somewhere in that 6 to 12 week period is a good area to have a diet break, depending on how long you're dieting for. So do 6 weeks weight loss, fast and furious weight loss, then just do a 6-week weight loss period. But if you want to do, say, 16-week weight loss, break it up into 3 lots of 6, which is about 18 weeks, say 5 weeks each, and add a 1 or 2 week diet break in between each of those 5-week periods. So work out how you want to lose your weight, get that energy deficit worked out, do it for 5 weeks, have a break for 2 weeks. Go back up to your maintenance calories that you were before. Then do it again. Go for your 5 weeks. But if you can sustain it for the whole 15 weeks without too much trouble, that's good. Do that as well. So we come to the fourth and last rule, which is adding weight or tissue to your body, which means you are consuming more calories or more energy than you burn in a day, which is referred to as an energy surplus. So the first way is easy. Just do everything you're currently doing and just eat more food and put more calories into your body and you'll gain weight. Is that the healthiest way to do it? Probably not, but that's one way of doing it. The other way that most people do think of adding weight to their body is by adding muscle to their body. And in order to add muscle to your body, your weight needs to go up. All right, so the next bit you need to take on board and be happy with. Firstly, I'll put a bit of a caveat at the start of it. Unless you're genetically gifted or taking some of those extra non-over-the-counter stimulants, this will be the case. In order to gain muscle, you will have to gain some fat along with it. The genetically gifted will gain less fat and more muscle than the average person will, and the people who take all those extra supplements will gain more muscle than fat than the average person will. But on the normal scheme of things, the average person, in order to gain muscle, will usually gain around about the same amount of fat at the same time. Some people will gain a little bit more muscle than fat, and other people will gain a little bit more fat than muscle. But it's generally roughly around about a 1-to-1 basis. So you need to be happy with that before you start thinking that. Now, where I mentioned before, when people are extremely overweight in an unhealthy manner and are carrying a lot of extra fat storage on their body, yes, they can lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. And the reason for that is because they already have that energy stored in their body for their body to call upon. If you're already relatively at a healthy body range or at a low body fat percentage, you won't have the same amount of energy stores to do that with. So yes, you will have to gain weight, which means you will have to add more calories or more energy to your body in order for your body to build more muscle. But along with that comes more fat. There are a couple of ways you can do this. There's basically 3 ways that you can look at it in doing it. I'll go through the worst one first. which is just go hell for leather and eat whatever the hell you like and just chuck it in there and put on some weight and lift some weights and do whatever you're doing to try and add muscle to your body, which is often referred to as a dirty bulk. If that's what you want to do, go for it. But usually what happens is you end up putting on a lot more fat than you do muscle. You put on a lot quicker than you need to, and it becomes a lot harder to take off. It's not the way I suggest you do it. And although a lot of people do it and like doing it that way, I do not suggest you do it. It's not good as far as I'm concerned, and it's not the right approach. The next two are two approaches that I tend to like and agree with a bit more. The first one is if you're at a healthy weight and you're at a reasonable body fat percentage, there's plenty of information on what that is. A healthy body fat range is somewhere between 80 and 22%. In that area there is, or 24% is generally what it is for men. Women are 5% more than that simply because of their genetics and their makeup. So when a man's at 15% body fat, which is relatively low, lower than most, a woman's equivalent body fat percentage would be about 20%. There's lots of information online. You can look that up and look at that. So have at it if you want to find out more about that body fat percentages are. But just as an example, if you are sitting around about that healthy body fat range and you want to add muscle to your body, the two best ways that I think are of doing it is the first one is pick a specific weight that you want to reach. So if you are 75 kilos and you want to put on 5 kilos of muscle, go, right, I'm going to put on weight till I get to about 85 or 83 kilos in weight, and I'm going to keep my calories in a surplus until I get to there. And you can do that just by adding a certain percentage of calories to your food. So once again, we'll just go back to that 2,500 calories that I said before. Just increase that by about 10% and see what happens. What will generally happen is you'll find your weight will start going up. One of the couple of things I will say, as you eat more carbohydrates, if you start eating more carbohydrates, there'll be a bit of an increase in water retention and things like that because more carbohydrates in your diet tend to lead to more water retention in your muscles and just in general. All right, so you got to keep things like that in mind. The first week or two, you might jump up a lot, but give it its time and see what happens over 2 or 3 week period, 4 week period, and see if your weight keeps going up. If your weight doesn't start going up, then fine, increase it by another 10%. Then if the weight continues to go up by say more than 1% of your body weight every week, after that initial gain, drop your calories back a little bit, knock it back 5%, and work from there. So so in that case, 10% of 2,500 is 250, 5% is half of that, which is 125. So you just adjust your calories as you can until you meet that calorie goal. The weight target. The other way is following the same process, but if you don't have any sort of particular weight or weight goal in mind, you do something that's sort of akin to what they would call recomping. If you want to look that up, you can do that. Is just push your calories up by, if you start at 2,500, put it up to 2,600, 2,700. Monitor it for a few weeks while you're doing your exercise to gain muscle. And as your weight goes up, once it hits a point, let it plateau for a little while and keep it at that level until your weight starts to drop off. If your weight starts to drop off, then increase your calories again a bit more till your weight starts to go up. Then do that for a bit longer. Once it plateaus, stay there until your weight starts to decrease, then start increasing your calories again to let your weight go up. And that's just a slow, continual increase in weight as you go. Once again, I recommend if that becomes a bit too much for you, just have a break, find your maintenance calories or your energy balance calories and stay there for 3 or 4 weeks or 5 or 6 weeks, and just try and keep that weight about there. A lot of people successfully recomp that way over a long period of time. A rule of thumb is roughly about 1% body fat, body weight increase a month 1 to 1.5% body weight increase a month is probably a good way to do it, or just under half a gram or half percent body weight a week. So if you're going up 1 to 2% in body weight every month, that's not too bad. So if you step back from that and have a bit of a look at that, you'll see that a 2 kilogram increase in weight, if you weigh 100 kilograms to start, say, over a 5-month period, is 10 kilos in 5 months, or 20 pounds if you want the imperial scale. But it's going to probably be a bit less than that, or around about that. So you're looking at somewhere between probably 6 to 10 kilos in that 5 months if your body weight's increasing in that 1 to 2% area if you're weighing at 100 kilos. So when you get to the end of that, you can go, right, just stay at the same calories, and you'll slowly come up. Your body fat will go down, or you can go into one of those fat loss periods where you bring your weight down really fast. It's all completely up to you how you want to do that. Basically, they're the rules that you need to follow when it comes to making a successful, healthy change to your life. So be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself with your plans and your diet. Be honest with your friends and let them know what you're doing. And then follow those 3 rules when you come to making those plans. The last 3 rules when you come to making those plans. That's if you want to add tissue or muscle or weight to your body, you need to consume more energy than you're using. If you want to stay the same weight and keep the same amount of tissue on your body, you need to eat the same amount of calories or energy that you are burning every day. And if you want to reduce weight or the amount of tissue that you're carrying on your body, you need to eat less calories or energy than you are using every day. Alrighty, so once again, I hope that helps. I hope you got something out of that. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to contact me. Remember what my dad said. Plan to start the way you plan to continue, and be honest with yourself, and you will have a successful change in your life for the healthier. Until next time, this is Matt Ross at Simple Strength Training. Have fun, staying strong for life, people.